friends, I'm Vicky and you're with Grammy in the kitchen. Today we're going to make chicken and dumplings. If you remember this video right here of us cooking 2 whole chickens in the crock pot, well, we used part of that chicken in this chicken and dumpling recipe, as well as some frozen vegetables we had on hand and some chicken stock. Let's make some delicious chicken and dumplings. While we were making dumplings for this recipe, we're going to go ahead and make enough dumplings to put in the freezer for future dumpling recipes. Since we already had everything out, flour and the butter and the island was already messy from rolling those out, we went ahead and made some biscuits for the freezer. This is Becky's from Acre Homestead's recipe. Go check her out. She's a sweetheart, and these biscuits are delicious. I ended up doubling her recipe, and I have 2 dozen biscuits in here. So let's go ahead and make some chicken and dumplings, and also have some backup dumplings and some biscuits. Please hit that subscribe button. We would love to have you part of the Grammy family. So without further ado, aprons on, let's get cooking. Here I have my 5-gallon bucket of all-purpose flour with the gamma lid. And then I have my counter flour. One's half full, one's completely empty. We're going to go ahead and fill these up so that we can have enough flour to do all the things we need to do today. That's one. Now we're going to fill this one up. It's a good thing I got another 50-pound bag of flour coming tomorrow on my Azure order. And speaking of which, I did a price comparison, which I will do on the Azure haul with products, the things that I'm getting from Azure. I'll pick up my order tomorrow to Amazon. And I know, and I'm sure a lot of you know, if not, you will after today, there is a significant savings from ordering like items from Azure versus Amazon. For example, the flour I buy, and if you watch the next video, you'll see the flour I use. I can get that same flour from Azure Standard, and I can get it from Amazon if I wish, but the price, so it's called the Baker's Craft Unbleached White Wheat Flour, and it's 50 pounds. The price I paid with Azure is $47.51 for 50 pounds. The same flour with Amazon was $79.95. That's a savings of $33. Watch my haul. It's going to be the next video out. Watch my Azure haul, and I will tell you price from Azure to Amazon and my savings. My savings is insane this time. But back to today. We're going to make some dumplings and some biscuits. Now my dumpling recipe is very simple. It's just flour, salt, butter, and a shortening. Yes, you can use Crisco, but if you want a healthier, clean ingredient shortening, I suggest you, but this is the brand I use. It's a palm shortening. And the only ingredient in here is organic palm oil. At the time of this recording, I just looked it up on their website. This is a 4-pound tub, and it's $15.86 for this, which comes up to $3.96 a pound. For clean ingredients, that's very, very economical. I still have a Crisco that I've had in the cabinet for a while. Let's compare ingredients. Soybean oil, full hydrogenated palm oil, mono, and I cannot, there's additives in here. I can't say half of these words. And if you can't pronounce the words, they're not clean. This is a clean ingredient. Might be a little bit more than the good old fashioned Crisco, but it is better. I saw a hack where you could take Crisco and make an emergency candle. That's what I'm planning on doing with probably a cup of this left. So I have 8 ounces of butter right here that I just cubed up into small cubes. We're going to do equal amount of the palm oil. So we're going to do 8 ounces of the palm oil. I have a kitchen scale right here, and I'm using a paper plate just for easy cleanup. Alright, so this looks and acts just like shortening, but cleaner. Eight ounces right there. I have salt and I have some milk. This is A2 powder milk that we rehydrated last night and just stuck it in the refrigerator. That is 1 quart. We're going to start off with about 6 cups of flour. We're going to go ahead and add a good heaping, probably about 2 teaspoons of salt in here. We're going to give that a little whisk. This is a Danish whisk, if you haven't seen one. Alright, so we got our salt and our flour all mixed up. We're going to put in 8 ounces of palm shortening. Like, again, you can use Crisco, but I do discourage it. Please get a clean alternative. We're going to add our 8 ounces of cubed butter. With the best equipment in the house, our hands. We're just going to go in there and break this butter and the shortening into the flour. We want a cornmeal consistency to this. Like I said, we might have to add more flour. We started off with 6 cups to a pound of fat. Squish all the big pieces. I would move you closer, but unfortunately my hands are dirty. My butter I just keep in the freezer, and last night I took out 3 of those bricks just to do the things we need to do today, and they're just sitting in the refrigerator. Now, this is going to take a few minutes. I'll bring you back when we're ready to add our milk. Alright, so it's kind of a cornmeal consistency. Most of my butter has been broken up into the flour along with the shortening. Now we're going to go ahead and start adding our milk. this is a quart. I'll let you know how much of this we used. I'll put it in a description. Starting out with about 1.5 cups. Alright, looks like we used 2 cups. Add a little bit more flour. That's another 1.5 cups. So now we're up to 7.5 cups. Now we're just going to knead that in. Just going around the bowl, pushing all that flour that we just added into our mix. Make sure to scrape the bottom. Because we have 1 pound of fat in here, between the butter and the shortening, it is going to be a sticky dough, but that is what we're looking for. Alright, let's move it onto our bench. We're working the milk and the butter and the shortening into this, getting it all nice and blended, and you can actually see the butter in there. Oh, it's gonna be so good. Alrighty, I'll bring you right back once we get it in a cohesive, non-shaggy mess. Alright, we're going to divide this into 4s, just so we have something easier to manage. Alright, let's start working on this 1/4 right here. Just mopping up the bench, get all of the bits and pieces. That is pretty much cohesive. Add some flour to our bench. Add 1/4 of our dough. Make sure we flour both sides very well. Put a little bit of flour on our rolling pin. And we're going to roll these to about 1/4 inch in thickness. Starting to stick to our surface. Put a little more flour down. If you have those rolling pins with size gauge that goes on the end, this would be perfect. And you just put that on 1/4 inch and roll until your little gauges touches your bench top. Alright, I think we are there. And I just use a pizza cutter just going to remove the shaggy ends. Doesn't have to be perfect, but we want it as close to uniform as possible. Alright, so now we're going to go ahead and start cutting our dumplings. You can make them as big or as little as you like. I like mine about 3/4 of an inch to an inch wide. So I'm just going to go down here and just cut that to 3/4 of an inch to 1 inch all the way down. And then I want to go crossways, the same thing, so I can have a perfect little square. So I got a small baking sheet here that I have parchment paper on, and we are just going to lay these right on top of here without overlapping. And we're going to flash freeze this and then put them in Ziploc bags, minus the ones we're going to use today. Another sheet of parchment paper. Then we're going to stick this in the refrigerator while we continue working. Alright, so I will bring you right back when I'm done, and we'll stick them in the freezer. Alright, so that was batch number 1. We have 5 layers on our cookie sheet that we're going to flash freeze, and we're going to make another batch. Okay, so we just made a double batch of the dumplings. This is going to go in the freezer, flash freeze. Once they're nice and hard, we will put them in Ziploc bags according to how much we need for a recipe. I think I should be able to get about 3 chicken and dumplings from these dumplings. Although that took time today, but that's going to save me time in the future. Our future selves will thank us when we know we have homemade dumplings in the freezer ready to go when we want something warm, comforting, healing, and we don't have to go through the process of making dumplings at that time. We just have to make our stock with the chicken, with the vegetables, and toss these in when ready. But now we're going to make biscuits. I want to have some biscuits in the freezer ready to go. I am following Becky's recipe from Acre Homestead. If you haven't seen her videos, you got to check her out. She's a sweetheart. But we're going to use her recipe. I am not going to disclose the ingredients, because if it is her recipe, I'd rather you get the recipe straight from her and not from me. But we are going to use her recipe, and hopefully they turn out just as good as hers, because hers looks absolutely beautiful. But we're going to double this recipe, so all of her ingredients I'm actually doubling so I can have biscuits in the freezer. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and tilt you down so you can see what I'm doing, and we're going to go ahead and get started on these biscuits. So I have butter, and I don't have a pastry knife, so I'm just going to use my hands just like I did with the dumplings, and I'm just going to go in here and squeeze it into the flour. And then I have the salt, baking soda, and the baking powder in here, and that goes. Get those ingredients all nice and mixed up together. Just go in here squeezing the butter into the flour. You can also do this in a food processor. take your time, mash up all the butter pieces into the flour. Now we're going to add our, end quote, buttermilk mixture. Now we're going to go in here with our hands, mix it all well together. Can you see it? I have some flour right here. Make sure I get all that flour mixed into our dough. Scraping the inside of the bowl. Still want to get all this flour mixed in here. Okay. And that is our biscuit dough. Add some flour down on our bench. We're going to go ahead and cut this in half. Work with one recipe at a time. And she says she rolls it out. This gives her layers, and I love layer biscuits. We're going to fold it into thirds. Roll that out just a bit. Then we're going to roll it into thirds. I think I want to do it one more time. Let's put some more flour down on our bench. Right now we're going to roll it out and make biscuits. Like her, I am actually going to make mine square. I'll cut the ends off, cut this end off, and this end, and I think I want to make them maybe 1.5 inches. Okay, so some are big and some are little. We're just going to set these aside. I can see the layers. I don't know if you can. The pieces that we cut off, we're just going to save until we're finished with the other one. All right, let's get this all kneaded up really nice. That gave us 12 biscuits out of one recipe. dumplings right here. I'm going to knead this into a ball. And again, fold it 3 times. And when I'm folding it, I'm actually going thirds. So folding this side over to 1/3, and then folding this side over top of it. And this should give us our layered biscuits. Alright, we get it up with 26 biscuits. I have 2 pieces of parchment paper. I just have 1 piece that I've broken in half. We're going to layer our biscuits on here. And again, we're going to flash freeze these and put them in Ziploc bags and stick these in the freezer. Okay, in the freezer they go. And now we're going to go ahead and get started on some dinner. We're going to have chicken and dumplings. We made the dumplings already, so now we're just going to put everything together. So, remember the chicken we cooked in the crock pot? I'll link that video right here. So this is some of that chicken that we took off of the bones and stuck in the freezer. I have some onions I had diced to put in the freezer. I have some carrots that I had diced and also put in the freezer. And I need to go get some chicken stock, but that's okay. We'll get that in a second. So I'm just got a little bit of olive oil in this pan. I'm going to heat it up. We're going to start with frozen vegetables. Alright, let's go ahead and add our carrots and our onions. We're going to turn that on to a medium-low and let that cook. I'm going to go to the pantry and get some more vegetables out of the freezer, and I'm going to get some chicken stock, and I'll be right back. So I just went to the pantry and I got a pack of peas, a pack of corn, and I have 2 quarts of chicken stock. So just using a garlic press. We just want to saute that for about 15-20 minutes until all the vegetables are thawed and cooking. Did render off some water. Don't know if you can see that, but it does have some water in here. Alright, I'll bring you right back when we're ready to move on to the next step. We're going to go ahead and add our salt and pepper. If you have the better bouillon chicken or the vegetable blend, this is actually the vegetable base, you can use that. I have no problem with that whatsoever. But I prefer to use this chicken broth powder that I get from Azure Standard. So I'm going to put about 2 tablespoons in here just to add an additional chicken flavor. Stir that in. Oh, it's already starting to smell so good. We're gonna have, you can use either store-bought or home canned chicken stock. Go ahead and add my corn. This was frozen corn. We're going to go ahead and add our peas. That was frozen peas. And our chicken is frozen solid. But in the hot liquid, it will melt all inside. Alright, so we're just going to let that sit on the stove and simmer. I'll bring it back and let you know how long that took. It's been 15 minutes and the chicken's breaking apart fine in this broth. Let it continue cooking. And I do have the lid on it, slightly ajar, just to have a vent spot. And it took 20 minutes for all the chicken to thaw into the broth. I am going to add 1 quart of water. Now we need to taste it for salt and pepper. Definitely need some salt. Pepper is okay. Put a big pinch or 2 of salt. Once this comes up to a boil, we're going to let it simmer for 30 minutes. And then we're going to start adding our dumplings. Another taste. Spot on. And we are boiling. We're going to let that boil for about 30 minutes. We're going to add our dumplings. These are the dumplings we made earlier. They're not completely frozen, but we're going to go ahead and Ziploc these up. And I'll let you know how many gallon-sized Ziploc bags I get out of this 2 batches of dumplings. Now we're going to go ahead and start adding the dumplings to our chicken. Finish this recipe up. But we like a lot of dumplings. Dumpling is nothing but a boiled biscuit. Alright, so I think I needed 3 layers, and I think that is plenty enough. Alright, so we're just going to let that dumplings cook in this liquid, and I'll bring you right back for a nice big bowl of homemade chicken and dumplings. Just remember, occasionally just come in here and give it a stir so none of the dumplings stick to the bottom and get scorched. Isn't that just beautiful? We're going to let that cook until the dumplings are done, and you can tell they're done. It's when they start to puff up. They just puff up. You remember they were partially frozen, so we're actually thawing them and cooking them in the stock. So in case you can't see, I'll tell you, right now the soup is thickening up. The starch from the dumplings is thickening the soup up more than I wish it to. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add 2 cups of water in here just to thin it out a little bit. And the dumplings are not quite done. We are at 30 minutes cooking it with the dumplings, and we're just going to let that continue cooking, scraping the bottom periodically just so we don't have anything sticking to the bottom. Alright, yeah, that looks a lot better, thinned out just a little bit. This in a bowl. I'll bring you back and we're going to taste some chicken and dumplings. Okay, so our chicken and dumplings are ready. Let's give it a taste. Just look at the beautiful thickness of it. It is so thick and creamy. That is so good. So good. Alright, so now we're going to do a recap of what we did today. We made 2 batches of our dumplings, put it on parchment paper on a cookie sheet, put it in the freezer, froze those. We were able to make the chicken and dumplings today. In addition, we have eggs going in the freezer for future recipes. And we also made Becky's biscuits from Acre Homestead. I have 2 dozen oddly funny shaped biscuits. And here we're going to stick those in the freezer. All the parchment paper we used today for the dumplings and the biscuits, I just stuck in a Ziploc bag. We're also popping this in the freezer. So the next time, which won't be anytime soon, we need to make more dumplings or more biscuits, we don't have to keep wasting parchment paper. So that's our savings for today. Reuse parchment paper, just keep it in the freezer as long as they were used as frozen items. If you found anything in this video informative to you, please hit that like button. That really helps with the channel to grow. Have a great day.